South Park: The Stick of Truth is my favorite video game of all time, and it's not even close. Reference the video, I just want to say that I have some biases because South Park is my favorite television show of all time. However, I don't know how this bias works because the video game actually enhanced the show for me. Growing up, I didn't have access to a lot of forms of media, and one of the only things I really did was Comedy Central and South Park. South Park is older than I am, and yet I've seen every single episode probably at least 4 times now. That's not even an over-exaggeration. It's like I said in my other South Park video, I quite literally rewatch the entire show at least once or twice a year, and I'm getting ready for my next huge rewatch. So why is the first video game they make my favorite game of all time? There's a lot of reasons. You can call this my ramble review of The Stick of Truth. I'm just going to title it how I title most of my videos and move on. So The Stick of Truth is the first video game that came out from South Park Studios, and wow. Like, for this to be one of their first huge games at the span that it is and the reach that it had is just almost unheard of, especially coming from an already established IP studio. I want to make that very clear that there is a lot of licensed video games out there for different IPs, and most of the time they're not that good, but for some reason this game just hit all the marks. As someone who 100%ed the game 4 separate times, all I really see now are the things that I dislike about the game. However, there is so much that I love. And to start off is the replayability. The fact that you can pretty much replay this game as much as you deem fit and play it the way that you like. Part of that is because there are 4 separate classes in the game, which each give you your own abilities. They give you your own weapons that like look cooler with your outfits. There's all the different cosmetic variations and armor variations. There's the different add-ons to weapons and armor. So one playthrough you can have a sword that's on fire, and the next playthrough it's all electric abilities. I'm gonna probably replay the game soon and use just electric weapons. You can play through the entire game just using your mana and just literally farting and killing your enemies that way too. The buddy system in this game is really good because you have an ally. I atone it to the Mario and Luigi games on DS, like Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, where there's 2 characters on the screen and you kind of choose your abilities and attacks for each of them. It doesn't help that my favorite character, Butters, is the first buddy that you get, and it's my favorite. He's my favorite. I love his abilities the most. But if you have like a favorite South Park character, there's a pretty decent chance that they are a buddy in this game because you have a lot of options. They made South Park just completely atone to the television show. Everything matches. It lines up perfectly to when the game was released. And honestly, as someone who keeps up with South Park, going back and playing the game and seeing South Park as it was when the game released compared to as it is now with like literal location changes or character changes is something really cool. It's almost like a time capsule in a way. But yeah, the replayability of this game is really cool. The customization is really good, and you can really kind of make your own South Park character, which is kind of the main plot. And that's the other thing, is this game actually tells a really good South Park story. Like, there are different levels to stories that Matt and Trey can tell, and this one is up there for me. Of course, it starts off with the kids just using their imagination to do something pretty innocent and just beat the crap out of each other, and then it devolves into a Nazi zombie infestation in the town because of aliens. And if you've never played the game, that probably doesn't make any sense, but you should, because the game is really cheap on Steam and on consoles too, and it's really fun. Seeing each of the characters have their own personality is also something really surprisingly good in this game. Each character captures themselves perfectly. They are like one for one with the show. A lot of the times with IP games, there are things that are cut. There are characters that just kind of their personality doesn't really match the same. But with The Stick of Truth, that's just not the case. Even characters like Kyle's dad will have one-liners that reference other episodes of the show, like how one of the times I walked past him recently while replaying the game for footage, he talks about how he always wants to become a dolphin, which is an episode of South Park where he literally changes to become a dolphin. The music in this game is incredible. The Stick of Truth is kind of the children's take of Game of Thrones, which is referenced in the Black Friday special of the actual show. Yes, they used the show to not only promote the game, but to expand on the lore that they were building in said game, and then also shouted out the game at the end of a 3-part special that's really good. So that's just kind of the lengths that they went for this game. It takes beats from Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, and it's just something that is really enjoyable. Cartman is a wizard. That's my only point. Like, you get to see Eric in a wizard's costume for the entirety, and he's actually not the villain, which is super surprising. The timeline of the game makes a lot of sense, which kind of ties into the story where it takes place over a few days. And it feels a lot longer until you play the game a couple times and you're like, this game is actually pretty short. Especially compared to their sequel game, it feels like it's about half of the length, which makes sense. But for me, it always kind of catches up to me almost randomly. That's probably one of the only things I don't really like about the game, is that the pacing of it kind of drops the ball. It almost feels like a 2-part South Park special just in a game, and they didn't really know how to kind of expand it all that well. But again, this is like a top tier Matt and Trey story. So in the world of South Park, the story that the game is trying to tell is really cohesive and makes a lot of sense and is just really fun to be a part of. That leads me to probably my favorite part about the game, is that the Stick of Truth, even over the Fractured But Whole, which is the sequel title, feels like you're actually playing a South Park episode. The game mechanics are all really good, make a lot of sense. There's a lot of aspects that are very video game-y, but in even more ways, there are more aspects to make you feel like you're just watching a South Park episode. If you go on YouTube and watch one of those compilations where it's just all the cutscenes, it literally is just a South Park episode. And for me, that's something I always wanted as a kid. So when this game came out, I fell in love with it almost instantly, and it's something that I still find myself replaying at the point of when I get to the specials in the show. The game makes you feel attached to the characters that you already have a pre-established notion of, which is a really weird feeling because you go into the game knowing certain things about every single character, and the game doesn't really do anything to challenge those things. It just uses them to help you love the game more. Every character that has a speaking role in the game feels authentic. It feels like something that they would say in the show, and it feels like your character is literally just dropped into South Park, which is literally what happens in the plot. So you and the new kid go on this adventure together, and it actually helps that the new kid doesn't speak until the very last beat in the game. And for me, that just kind of made it that much better. So The Stick of Truth is my favorite game of all time. There's not much else more to say. So many people have talked about this game. This game was everywhere when it came out. I'm pretty sure PewDiePie played this game when it came out. That's how impactful it was, which led to PewDiePie being in a South Park episode in the future, which is just, for me, as someone who watched it like unfold in real time, it's just crazy. But yeah, hopefully we get news on the 3rd South Park game soon. I thought we were possibly gonna get some news on it sometime at Summer Games Fest. We didn't. I missed the ball on that one. So hopefully we get some news sometime this year. Let's stay on the lookout for the next South Park special, because I might actually switch it up and not just do games, and maybe I'll review the South Park special when it comes out, because that's how much I love South Park. But yeah, if you are playing any other game right now, or you do not have a game that you are playing at the moment and you just want like a nice, relaxing, fun, great story, please go play The Stick of Truth. You don't need to be a South Park fan to enjoy the game, although you might find some of it annoying if you don't like the humor. Okay, maybe look up some South Park jokes, and then if you laugh, then play the game.